Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Gmail here again. And first of all, I want to say sorry that I cannot make the recaps of round 4, 5, and 6. So as people here may know from my stream, so I just finished a Blitz tournament in my country last weekend in the south of my country. So I was at home. The Wi-Fi there surprisingly suck, so I cannot really upload things. Also, I need to focus fully on my tournament, so I didn't spend time for the event. I still follow it obviously very closely on my Discord, talking with my friends, discussing the games, but I didn't really have time for the coverage, so I'm very sorry for that. But okay, here is back home. So today I will try my best to make the coverage and enjoy the series of my recap back to you guys. I hope that I can be able to finish the whole matches, which I think should be available. But let's go back here to the match. So after 6 rounds, the result is tied 3-3. So let's try to sum it up from game 4 to game 6. Game 4, Ding was white and he opted for, I believe, the ready knife 3, b3, bishop a3, which is a somewhat realized, but somehow Gukesh just defended pretty well and he was never in trouble. The game ended up in a draw pretty quickly. Game 5 was another French, and Gukesh, I think to everybody's surprise, opted for the French exchange, which basically did not give him any chance to win at all. But I guess now he really wants to just show his card that he will try and play it safe and will not take risks at all. Obviously, we just hope for the chance to come maybe in some long-term running, right? But they also play well. He was actually somewhat better there, but then he was happy to have a draw with the Black Pieces. Game 6 was actually more fun when Ding opted for the London variation, London system, that had brought him the win against the Pomniachi in the last World Champs, as you can remember. But this time it was harder. Both players know threats pretty well. They play first 20 moves like an engine, and then somehow it made it hard there to go for the win. Ding inflicted some more chances, but he was somehow, I think, content with a draw. So he opted, he went for repetition, which Gukesh somehow declined. And, after a long fight, it still was a draw. So, yesterday was also a break, right? So now today, we got to game 7 when Gukesh will be white again. And now I think it will mark the last game of the first half. Let's see if things can be right. So this game, Gukesh went for knife 3. It actually is pretty cool things right here. As you know, so in the first game, Gukesh played French. Game 3, he played d4. And game 5, he played French again. So now with knife 3. So he basically had played both e4, d4, knife 3, right? g5. Okay, in the game, g3, the king didn't attack. g6, obviously a playable things, but can also play here as well too. Here as well, plenty here are available. But this one, I think is pretty solid choice. d4, g7, g2, c4 I mean, c6, g2, knife 6, castles, castles. So this is the original defense of the Neo Runefell, which is known to be a really solid weapon for black. Here white can opt for plenty of moves, b3, cd5, knight bd2, a4, queen b3, queen a4, all that stuff. But in the game, I think to avoid the preparation from Ding's team, Gukesh went for, I think, a super rare move, which I think will become more common or less more trendy after the tournament. Group E1. According to my Chattercom database, there was only 4 games played in this position. Actually, if I can see here, actually 5. But, the game should be some kind of, I think, email game or something like that, I guess. So, by this move, Group E1, why didn't show his card yet? I guess his main plan is that if black play dc4, black can play e4. This one here will be, I think, unused from later on, I suppose. So here black can play bishop f5, a5, all the things. In the game, Ding went for a long thought and then pressure the pawn, which obviously is the most principal option. e4, obviously this should be in Ding's, like in Gukesh team's preparation. g4, maybe d2. And here, so Ding went for a wrong choice, c5. This one I think was marked. I think a question mark by the engine when I saw the game live. So from what I know, the engine wants to play b5, b5. So h3 and the bishop to e6, I guess so. But in reality, this kind of position is not that easy to play. Like some players can be able to play the stuff, but some players cannot. Like for me, I don't really enjoy black positions. Like although I'm a pawn up, somehow so the pawn here is double, right? And this pawn here can become a weakness in the future. Also, white can play a4 right here to take the pawn and push the pawn on d5. Also, we can try and play like maybe knight f1, bishop f4, and he got a strong center, right? Which I think it depends on your taste, but for me, I'm not a fan of this one. Maybe Ding also has the same taste with me, have no ideas. In the game, c5 was play. Black trying to counter on the center right away. d5. But I think if Ding play b5, Gukesh will still keep on blazing because it is his prep, right? So he may have a good solution against b5. c5 here, although technically speaking, is not a good move, unless it forces Gukesh to get out of prep. d5, e6. Let's see h3 in the game. This here, f3, ed5, ed5, bd7, knight c4. So I will stop this point a little bit first. Here, so I think you can realize that white is better. He got much more space, bishop pair, and a strong pawn on d5, right? Which obviously is a good passers. Also, black here will struggle a little bit to find some good squares for his pair up knight. Somehow, for instance, right, this can be play, and the bishop here will become very powerful. And white's play here will become very simple. Bishop f4, queen b3, on kind of things, and I think white's chance here must be huge. So in the game, Ding right away went for the counter play, which I think is very important. b5, like the only move here to not getting worse. Knight 3, queen b6. At least, now Ding managed to kick Gukesh knight to the rim, isn't it? f4, keep on developing. To f8, queen d2. But still here, I must be honest that I still prefer white positions. His knight can be rerouted back to c2 at some point, and this pawn here is still, hard to be attacked. The most important thing here is that bishop pair in somewhat unopen positions will be an edge for the one who has it. So I still feel like it is much easier to play here for white. In the game, we did c2, reroute starts, f8, b4. This one is a very nice idea here by Gukesh. For me, it is an exclamation mark. A really good positional ideas. So, first of all, you may be seeing that now black is putting some pressure on the pawn here, right? But in fact, the pawn is still here, and it's not that easy to take it at this point. Knight 6 here can be a small threat, seems to be. Pinning the queen here and take the bishop, but then bishop e3, and then it is quite clear that the knight doesn't do much there on the square, to be honest. So, b4 is a very strong move. Why? It literally forces black to make a decision about opponent c5. If black plays c4, as the way he played in the game, knight d4 can be considered and go here as well. Or the bishop also can be rerouted to, I think, a much more dangerous diagonal, probably, right? Also, a4 can be considered at some point later on to attack this pawn on b5. But if black doesn't do something about the pawn on c5, let's say a6, right? You take here for an instant, and now a c1, and your knight can go to some very strong and great potential squares. So here, this is a really good positional move here by Gukesh. It seems like it allows Ding to get a pass pawn on c4, but somehow the pawn there is not going to queen very soon. So the reroute of the pieces is much more important. So in the game, c4. Also need to realize that after c4, move 19, now Ding is down to 20 minutes, right? Compared to 1 hour from Gukesh, which I think will become trivial and important very soon. Should e3, queen a6, should e4. A nice idea is right here. Now it neutralized the bishop on g7. Obviously now d5 here doesn't work because of rook e8, and the rook here is overloaded, right? Rook e1 first also doesn't work here. I guess actually it's fine, but somehow this pawn on d5 here is still poisoned because the knight here is still hanging on d5. So in the game, e1 was played, e1. So the engine right now wants rook e8, which for me is not that an easy political choice. To be honest, here if I were black, I would consider like knight 8 d7 or h5 probably. I don't like this one because it feels like now the pawn can be pushed easier, I guess, like here, this pawn, right? Maybe the engine can be for this one, but for me, I am not a fan of this one, in my opinion. But in the game, Ding went for a much more risky option, queen a2. I don't know. I guess that when you don't know what to do, capturing your pawn is fair, but still, it looks very risky to me. To a certain point. a1, good by Gukesh, queen b3, rook a3, kicking queen away, also defend the bishop here as well, right? Queen b1, king g2. So now white is down a pawn, but a pawn on a7 can always be recaptured, and moreover, the queen on b1 feels not so safe, right? It feels like it can always get trapped at some point, or it doesn't have like the most, solid square. In the meantime, so now it's not easy to recommend what can black do here with his pieces. So at this point, white's chances are much bigger. In fact, here, so when I watch this moment live, I even think that it's gonna be maybe a win for Gukesh team. d7 in the game, a5. A very smooth here by Gukesh. Take the pawn on b5, and maybe trying to put the rook here to b8. Queen b3, rook e5. Rook a2 in again here, gaining some more time, which I don't know. For me, so it may be a sign that Gukesh is not so sure. Like if he can see things right away, he should repeat because it can give him some more time on the clock, right? Probably, but obviously in a board, I think repeating may also be a good practical choice. a3, b1, here again, here, the pawn finally, queen d3. Opt for the queen trade, which I think is a pretty smart choice by Ding, because if play here for instance, right, the pawn can even become a strong passer. And now this one can be a threat because the bishop here needs to defend the Prussian square, right? So this one is a pretty reasonable choice, unless black has some activities, right? In the game, queen f4 was played. Bishop e3 is recommended by the engine with the idea to defend the queen and also trying to relocate the knight to this this route. In fact, I'm not so sure how much better it can be. Maybe queen d2, bishop d2, knight, maybe? But then I think rook a5 and then the bishop can get back here on the time. The pawn here is surprisingly not so threatening because black can, I think, not able to really support the pawn. So this one, I think, is better version of what happened in the game. So in the game here, queen e3, queen f4, c2, takes the pawn and queen f5. At least now the queen is swapped up. Ding got to an endgame. I mean, technically speaking, should still be hard for him, but at least some more chance can be seen, right? So in the game, rook c5. Got the pawn here, this point. I think the engine believed that earlier it's better to retain the bishop, But for me, once again, it feels a little bit unpractical. because bishop now gets stronger and then it can support the pawn, you know. So in a blitz game, I would also do like Gukesh, to be honest. I guess that's why I do not belong there. But still, I think Gukesh's choice is pretty human. He went for the pawn on c4. And g6, c4, knight e5, d4, defend the pawn. So now you understand that knight f3 here is a big loss because right now, so the rook here will always be tied up here on this pawn. Actually, let's play here first, I guess. So king f4, you know, and this is now a threat, and the black rook here will always be so passive. The idea for why not is simple. You can be like f3, g4, g5, you know, and get king e5. Or this one, this push, right? Can start the game on the spot. So in the game, nice it was play. Obviously, don't take the pawn, don't take the knight here, right? That is poison. Rook f4, take the pawn on f5, knight e7, b5 here. I guess now take the pawn here on d5 can lead to this one, right? When now white is the one who can always push here. These pawns are weak and, you know, also separated, and white clearly got a chance to ride in a long term, which I think Gukesh really love to play, right? In the game, kf6, move, third tier right now, reach, d4, a6, kf1. So here we come to an important moment. Move 40. Here, so according to the engine, Gukesh was slightly better, because now his king can try to come across the queen side to help, but somehow it's not so easy. This pawn here and this pawn in fact are both weaknesses, although black pawns are also -1 too, but it's not that easy to attack them. For me here, so I am somewhat surprised that they didn't play knight c8, which allow him to play the blockade move of knight d6. A very good principle to know is that a knight is always very well located in front of your opponent's passers, right? So this one feels more logical to me. In the game, sadly, Ding didn't play it, and in time scrambles, he played king e5. I'm pretty sure he played this move when he has around like 6 or 7 seconds left on the board. No, on the clock, I mean. The thing here is that right now, the pawn h6 here is now a real weakness. I guess Ding won to get activities, which is fair, but I think it's gonna be simpler to play like this one here, and I see it. For instance, let me show you the line. King e2, knight d6. Rook b4 obviously doesn't really work here because now you can play like rook b7, right? When the pawn here can be in big trouble. Rook h4 can always be countered with king g7, so it's not a big deal. For me, knight c8 here will be much more annoying. I guess the best chance to play now for white may lies on rook a4, knight d6, bishop e2, but here knight e4 I think can get to a pretty good idea, right? Which I think should end up in a draw probably. But you know, it's hard to blame the players, I guess, when they're down in time. So in the game, this one I think is considered a question mark. But you know, it has happened a million times that in move 40, in the time control, the players make mistakes, right? Not that an uncommon mistake. So which one the game? Knight d5 from here. Knight c3. Play very quick by the Iran. This is over here, and now the rook is getting back here to the c file. So let's stop right here. You can realize that white is up a pawn, right? Black also had double pawns, which doesn't seem to be good at any means, right? The pawn here can become a very strong asset in the near future. Also, the rook here is very well placed. Knight b5 here obviously doesn't work, and now the rook can be able to come back home and defend the pawn here if needed, or still trying to attacking these pawns. At this point, I think the chat always thinks that actually it is black who is now dead lost. Also, I'm sorry for technical issues. I don't know for how long my cam has been frozen. Hopefully, you guys can still hear me well. So in the game, knight e4 was play. King e1. So here, this is actually a hard moment. I guess now the nerves start getting into Gukesh a little bit. It is a bit, you know, I think puzzling why Gukesh didn't play h4. Now pushing the pawn right away seems fair, right? I think every time rook d2 can be played here, I think bishop e4 can be tried, and now the pawn will be dropped again, right? The rook, I don't think it can go away from the pawn for so long because of this move ideas for 7. I think Ding will very likely play f6, which is like the same defensive play in the game. But now rook c can be tried, and the check here will become, I think, incredibly annoying, which make rook d2, for instance, become impossible, right? When now the threats here, I think decided to get on the spot, isn't it? So this one I think is much better chance for Gukesh to win the game. Thirdly in the game, Gukesh got a bit, I think, overcautious. King e1. It is quite clear he want to stop rook d2, right? In the meantime, it loses a valuable timing and it's not that unwinnable at all. So for me, this move probably is not the best one. Probably. In the game, f6. For me, I like this move. A really great practical defense by Ding Liren. First of all, this pawn now is covered. So now rook 7 will not attacking both the pawns, right? Second, it separates the rook here from the square. So now the rook will not be able to switch to the side anymore. Also, this one here has a good ideas that you will see later on, which in the game they improve it very, very well. Here, I still believe that rook c8 can still be good for Ding, for Gukesh, because right now, rook d3 as in the game obviously can be countered by this one, right? As we know. And rook c8 here, if you play something like, I don't know, maybe let's see, maybe rook d5, I guess. Bishop e2, I guess so. And f4, which is the game we will see that later on, can be played with g4, which I think can give White some more chances compared to how the game went, right? In the game, h4, this one was played by Gukesh, but sadly it is, I think, also a slight inaccuracy. Rook d3, bulleting instantly by Ding Liren. Once again, good defense. Somehow, so right now, it put a big question on White what to do with the bishop. He can play various moves. This, and even this one, right? I think people are wondering like, okay, what happened if he can take the bishop e4? It has been, I think, there on a time when people know that it can be a good choice when you're trying to trade and liquidate into winning endgame, right? You have material, but here so it's not that easy because right now so the king here is so active, and in the endgame the activities sometimes can be worth more than a pawn. Now the b3 can be played, and somehow e3 can also be tried. The king here can be get some good squares, and I think with the activities right here, black should be able to hold. In the game, bishop d1, which is considered, I think, to be another inaccuracy by Gukesh. Somehow, so the best way to play is king e2. King e2. Rook d2, king e3 does nothing at all. Rook b3 taking now is better because right now the thing that changes is that the king on e2 is much better than the king on e1, isn't it? And now king for f5 is good for you, and here h5, and now white has more chances because right now the rook must stay on b3 to prevent the king from approaching e3 and e4. And now I think these ideas here can become quite annoying. For instance, this one, and now the pawn, oops, I mean that it is actually a mouse slip. And now the pawn can keep pushing, right? Which should be, I think, probably a win for white. But in the game, here I think Ding will play precisely like rook d5, for instance, to the pawn here, right? When now, so bishop e4 obviously doesn't work anymore because now the texture doesn't exist anymore, right? So now I think you need to go for some sorts of maybe push the pawn like here and here. I still think it should be maybe some chance for Gukesh, but it should be hard because black is so active, and in the endgame it is so important. And it gives him some good compensation for the material. In the game, Gukesh went wrong. F4, once again, exclamation mark by Ding Liren. I think he just played everything so quickly here and also really precise at this point of the game. G4, K4. And now it gets to a very cool moment. The engine now believes that it's now completely equal. In fact, here Gukesh also spent like the majority of time he has on the clock right now I think he probably realized that now the win doesn't exist anymore. So a very fun line here I want to show you is this one. Rook c4, queen, the knight. The idea is f3 in here, right? So here black must find the only move, but that is more than enough to hold this pawn. Rook h3 exclamation mark. But bishop c2, f5 can be fine, and f3 is a draw right away because here rook h1, king e1, rook h2, and now king to e1, and black can give a pressure, right? Obviously, king d3 will be ridiculous when it allows the mate in one, man, which is gonna be very, very fun to see. So in the game, I think the best practical choice was, I think, recommended by Peter Leko in the, I think, commentary with f3. This forces Ding to be, I think, precise for the last moment. He must fight rook e3. For instance, c3 right now is lost because of bishop c2, and now it is lost. Rook f3, rook f6 is losing instantly, and rook e3 d2, and now the white king gets better, and now suddenly black pieces feel somewhat loose, right? So here rook e3 must be foul, because it's the only way to play here at this point. Rook e3, king f1, knight c3, bishop c2, and then f5. When the pawn and the pawn here are only in trouble, but this should also be a draw, right? In the game, Gukesh tried, but sadly now it's just a draw at this point. c2, d5 play instantly by Ding Liren, very good play and very good defense. c4, f5, defend the knight obviously, b4 defend the pawn, f3. Here I think king e5 probably is simpler, or maybe trying to go for rook c5 right away, but Ding went for, I think, much more active ways. Maybe want to go for the win? Who knows? f3 in the game. Checks here, king g2. Rook b3, rook e5. So here once again, I want to show you a very fun line. I think that was mentioned by Dania, I think in the commentary booth. f3, h2, and kf1, 92 mate, man. What a fun finish. It will be epic, right? Isn't it? f4. But then Gukesh keep on fighting till the end. e7, e3. But now sadly Gukesh just had no chance at all. Ding just plays so accurate from now till the end of the game. h5, f6, e5 here, the pawn here, f8, and b7. Although now white is up a pawn, right? His pawns are quite weak, and black just has so much activities. So in the game, bishop e4, defend the pawn, kf3, f5, kf4, get close to the pawn, knight e4, and now in the game, if I slip to this move, they are no win anymore. And black defended nicely to hold a draw at the end, right? So I think, not only for me, but also for some people, some audiences, this game may be one of the most exciting games so far in the event with all the twists and turns. Gukesh, I think, was more prepared again in the opening, which I think is a problem for Ding's team, right? But then, he was better, and he was up on time, he was doing very, very well. But then, when he got so close to the win, I think he just also played somewhat inaccurate. I guess, pressure and nerves really exist in the playing hall. And then Ding, I think, got a chance. But then suddenly in move 40, when things seems close for him, if he can finally see it, he errs with king e5, right? Which allow Gukesh to be able to do out again with h4, winning h6 pawn. After h6 to h6, I think Gukesh is gonna win. But once again, Ding came up with some very resilient and practical defenses that I think, got a game into a very hard phase to convert. So in the game, sadly, Gukesh was not able to capitalize, on mistakes, and he let the win slip away, which is a little bit of, I think, unfortunate for him, right? As you know, I think right now, so it's gonna be close, and I believe this draw will give Ding some more confidences, getting to the second half of the game, of the match. But somehow, so we need to give credit for Gukesh, who always looking for the win, whatever it is, and always trying to looking for some fight. So whatever it is, thank you for both players. Maybe the match doesn't have like the highest quality, but I think it is really dramatic and people are really enjoying it. Very, very tense, interesting, and nothing to follow, right? Hopefully you enjoy my commentary, my recap, and we'll see you in the Game 8 recap for sure. See you later, and peace.